everybody? It's Austin. I go by I am the blue guy on everything. So everything right now is just YouTube, Instagram, and Blue Sky. I will probably at the moment make Blue Sky and YouTube my priority just because I'm more comfortable that way. But if everybody likes what I'm doing, and if anybody likes what I'm doing, I'm going to keep doing it. Even if they don't, I'm going to keep doing it. I hope the audio is clear. I'm clearly driving right now. I've got it set up where I don't have to look at the camera. I don't want to look at the phone. I don't like looking at my phone. But I do have my GPS there, so I will check that. And also, when it feels natural to do so, I'll glance at the phone. But this is just going to be a conversation between myself and anybody who's listening. So far, probably just my mom, but that's fine. She's gotten used to me going on long rant/tangents in the past, so there's just be more of that. And instead of just her and my family being part of it, you'll all be part of it. And right now I'm heading out of Vegas. I've been in Vegas for the last 3 years. I've lived in Vegas before, back in about 2013 to 2016. Well, I guess more like 2012 to 2016. But moved away and then moved back recently. Well, 3 years ago. And now I'm gonna go full nomad if I can swing it. That's my goal. As you can see behind me, I have my everything right now. Everything but a few things I left in storage or was able to sell off. Yeah, I have been wanting to do this for a long time, and was seeing what's going on in the news and how people are being treated and what people are saying. I'm not cool with it, so I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna head in the direction of the places where people are doing the things I don't want to see be done. Right now, DC. I'm gonna join the protest. It's a veteran protest. I was in the Air Force, active duty and National Guard. I don't want this world to keep going on the track that it's going, where the people, like my nephews, I want them to feel safe when they're old enough to comprehend what's going on. And I don't think right now we need to be better as a society. We need to treat people better. We need to stop talking about how being awake, or as people say, woke, is bad. It's if being awake, being cognizant of what's going on, being woke is bad, how can that be bad? You're literally saying that being aware of the problems, being aware of how everybody is awesome in their own right, is a bad thing, right? Like, all this stuff that's going on, getting rid of, trying to get rid of DEI, like it's as if what we used to do was better. It's not. It was people who looked like me telling everybody else, that they can or cannot get the job, right? It was people like me who would be underqualified getting the job. Not every DEI. They're using DEI as an insult, or as a way to, as a dog whistle for saying, they're being, it's a bigot thing. They're being racist. They're being sexist. They're being homophobic. They're being transphobic. They're using all this as ways to perpetuate this weird, gross agenda of what everybody knows is the real phrase. They're saying MAGA, trying to say we have been great. The goal of this country is to be great. We haven't quite gotten there. We've done some great things, individual things, but our track record in between those moments isn't the best. And that's coming from a person who loves this country. I genuinely love this country. But I love the land. I love the people. I love the experiences. I love what this place is. Not who runs it. Not who claims to run it. Not who is doing what they're doing now. Like, I'm proud to be an American in the same sense that if I was born in any other place and was, that was my home, I'd be proud to be from there. I lived in Japan when I was a kid. I've lived across this country. I've seen people from all walks of life, and I've been genuine friends or family with these people. Like they're not. It's not like strangers I see in passing. It's not people on the internet. It's people in my life. Like I would be proud to be from where I'm from. That's the thing. What's the point of doing it if you're not going to be proud about it, right? Well, I'm proud to be an American in the sense that I love this country, but I'm not proud to necessarily admit that I'm American. Like, if I was traveling, I'm traveling in the country, which is convenient because everybody here we sound the same. Or sound similar enough that I can say, oh yeah, I'm American, and it's not an issue. But if I were to go anywhere else and say, literally, it used to be the thing we could go into Canada or Mexico and say you're from America, and it's like, oh, no big deal, regular day to day. But nowadays, with this whole trade war nonsense, people are rightfully kind of embarrassed sometimes to admit I'm American, and not necessarily embarrassed for yourself or embarrassed for the people you know or embarrassed for the place the state you're from, but embarrassed of what's being done to our country, what's being done by our country, or our country's being weaponized against the world, and I hate it. Why should anybody think that they're better than anybody else just because they happen to be born on a different plot of land? It's insane. Like, I am an American, and that'll never change. Like, if I ever were to apply for citizenship somewhere else, I'd still I'd still keep my citizenship. But here, I wouldn't forego my American citizenship. So if that's a thing I can't do, that's fine. But if that was a path I would pursue, I would still keep this. Just like, I don't want to lose my past. I'm a very sentimental kind of. I have keepsakes. I like to collect keepsakes, and when I do, I don't just mean physical keepsakes. I also mean memories, and I don't take a lot of pictures. I'm trying to get better at that, but I like to. I'm a storyteller. Everything's a story to me, and so every object, every person, every place has got a story, and I want to help share those stories. I'll start with my own because nobody else is listening, and nobody else is here to talk to, so it's fine. Right now, in this moment, I can tell my story, which is awesome. And I'm going to be driving across this entire country. I've driven across huge swaths of this country, but I'm literally driving from Las Vegas, Nevada to Washington, D.C. That cuts across the entire country except for California, pretty much. And I've been to California a few times. I didn't want to turn back around and start from there. That would add too much time to my trip. But if I could have, I would have, just to make a thing of it. Go from coast to coast. And maybe I'll do that for the next trip. Maybe when I head the other direction, I'll make sure I touch the beach first and then drive the opposite direction. But I want to see this country. I want to meet the people of this country. I've met a lot of people from all walks of life, and they're all awesome in their own regard, in their own right. And every place is, people like to say that, if you're from a place, they're all kind of monolithic, one big structure. No. We know as Americans that every state is wildly different. But we also know that's the same for every town. Every town is wildly different. That's how it is across the entire world. Every person is wildly different. So to ever lump a group together, it's insane to me. Who are you to put me in a box? If I want to put identifiers or labels on myself, that's my prerogative. But that's not anybody else's role unless I involve them in it. So, for me, I openly admit, and I'll continue to openly admit and to say with my full chest that I am autistic and a veteran. But I'm also a lot of other things. Those are just two major pillars of who I am. The veteran thing is more of who I was. I was in that role, and so now I just reference it for commonality. But autism, that's a thing that's not going away. I might learn to adapt to it. I might learn to work with my brain better. But the fact of the matter is, I was born autistic. I will die autistic. I also have ADHD, so I will always have to deal with, and to some degree, ADHD in my life. And that means I see the world differently. I feel the world differently. And I feel it differently than people on both sides of that neurodivergent grouping, those two groupings I'm in. Autism feels different than ADHD. It really does. It's a thing I've learned to recognize, is that they are, you hear it and you know it and you recognize it, but at the same time, most people can't experience it. You can't choose to experience ADHD. You can't choose to experience autism. I have both. I am both. I don't want to say have, because I don't think of them as conditions anymore. I think of them as facets of who I am. And so I've learned to embrace and enjoy these aspects of myself. I joke around and have joked around my entire life about loving the idea of having a superpower. But the funny thing is that I do have superpowers. I've gotten a lot of superpowers from, or I think they're what people might consider symptoms of autism and ADHD. Not all of my superpowers are from those, but they're big ones. I see the world differently, and it is a superpower. It is an ability. It is something that is good. It can cause complications and make things difficult, but at the same time, they're good things, not bad things. I love being who I am. It's just, I do. And at this point, nothing can change that. With what I've gotten through, what I've done with my life, and how I've changed, especially over the last year and a half or so, I am me, and that's why I'm doing this. Is I am me, and I want people to know what that means, but in a way that hopefully can help them, because I only have my perspective. But from talking to people in my day-to-day, my perspective is pretty great a lot of times. I've had a hard life, so has everybody to some degree. Well, maybe not everybody, but most people have had a hard life at some point. Something has come up in their lives that's really made it hard to just exist and enjoy what we have. And for huge chunks of my life, that was my life. And so I'm fed up with seeing people weaponize aspects of myself against other people. So you notice I don't say I'm a white male autistic veteran, because those two parts, I'm a white man. I'm a white guy who is autistic and a veteran. Those other two parts are part of me, but they're parts of me that shouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It really shouldn't, because when you come down to it, why should my hair color matter or my skin color? Like, why? Unless it's a style thing, like, hey, that looks good in that, like, what you're wearing looks good with your skin tone and your hair fits what you're wearing. Like, it's a cohesive whole as an image. That matters when you choose to make it matter. But if you don't, make that matter how it matters to you, but don't affect other people's life based off of it. Don't make somebody else's life worse or different because of yours. If you can't, if it's not something that just is personal, like, it should, like, what the heck, why should race and like nationality, other than in the sense that you are a proud member of your nation, proud to come from your place of birth, your homeland, your home country, your home, that's awesome. But when it comes down to it, other than traditional, like, culture barriers, like language barriers and differences in behavior and cultural norms, those things should merely be, like, those are like, all should be just be good things. Like, oh, you're from a specific country, what does that mean for you? Like, how does that affect your day-to-day? Like, is it a part of your culture to wear certain articles of clothing? Is it part of your culture to eat specific types of food? Do you have specific rights and like, when I say culture, I don't mean specifically also national culture. I mean religious culture, traditional culture, in the sense that you might be part of a tradition or a belief system that has certain rites and rituals. Those are all amazing and beautiful. Like, that stuff should always be respected and should always be, honored in the most kind and graceful way possible. Treat people like they're individual people, not as a group, because we've all met people who are individually not nice people, not great people. But why should we use that against somebody who doesn't even know that person? Or if they do, like, you might know somebody who's treating you, who has treated you terribly, and then somebody else you also know could be a mutual friend, and that person could have no knowledge of what's going on, and so to treat them poorly because of what somebody else chose to do makes no sense. So I guess I went on a rant. I go on tangents. That's just gonna happen. But if you're living your life and your actions only impact yourself and anybody else who's willingly part of it, that's awesome. As long as everybody is part of it and willing, I like to say, as long as everybody's consenting, it's none of my business. Like, that means you have to be adults. That means you have to be respectful of each other's boundaries. You have to communicate. But that's the minimum. Like, being willing and consenting is the minimum. Other than that, it's none of my business. As long as nobody in the situation is being harmed, not my business. But at the same time, I am a passionate person. I'm a passionate person. I make that pretty clear. I'm making this pretty clear right now. I can talk about anything forever, and I want to share that because I feel like when I want what I say to matter, and that should be the extent of it. what you choose to share with other people is what is their business. If you don't choose to share those things, it's really not their business. Unless it affects them, it's not their business. So I kind of got, again, like I said, I got off on a tangent. My whole point was that we live in this country. We are part of a specific culture, or a facet of a like this big, was supposed to be a melting pot culture of, differing states of different beliefs and different values, but all under the umbrella of core values. And I love that. I love the idea of people being able to choose who they want to be and be respected for that, and not have to stress because they move from one chunk of land to the next within a country, or on a continent. This is a big country. Obviously, growing up as an American, we get shown maps that make us seem like we're way bigger than we are, and also make other continents seem way smaller than they are. So, but this is a big country. There are a lot of states, and each state is wildly different, both in climate and culture. I'm driving through Nevada right now. Driving through, I just left back Vegas. I'm heading towards Arizona, and this part of the country is hugely different than where I spent the majority of my childhood, which was on the Gulf Coast. It's not the Gulf of America, it's the Gulf of Mexico. It just is. It's nothing that anybody has said is changing that. We live in the United States of America, and we border our southern coast, wraps partially around the Gulf of Mexico. That's it. That body of water is the Gulf of Mexico. Why change the name? It has been the name for, as far as I know, forever. And what's the point in changing it? It makes no functional difference. It's silly. But I've always been of the mindset that if you aren't doing anything to hurt anybody, you should be free to do what you want. Obviously, there are certain limitations on that, like with finances and time and energy and all that stuff. But when you have the time, money, and energy to do something, you should be allowed to do that, as long as it's not hurting anybody else or negatively impacting anybody else. It's not their business what you should do with your life. It shouldn't be their business. And yeah, so that it just baffles me that people will try to weaponize essentially things that don't functionally, the parts of our lives that shouldn't matter, weaponize those things. And it's crazy. On an individual level, yes, it matters that I am who I am. But in the general day-to-day, I'm just a person in a crowd. You're just another person in the crowd. If the people around you, if you don't know anybody around you in a crowd of hundreds, those are the moments when you truly should feel like, oh yeah, this is how this works. If I'm not being, when you're not being perceived by somebody else, that is who you are. You don't, people change who they are moment to moment, day to day, to interact with others, but that isn't them. The true who they are is who they are when nobody's looking, when nobody else can hear them or perceive them. And that is who matters. Who you truly are matters, and how you treat others matters. I'm making it clear and trying to make a point of this whole process is I am going to do everything in my power to not lie. I might not say certain things that are personal or private about other people. That's because it's not my business. But as far as when it comes to telling a story like this, I'm going to tell the truth as closely as possible. I will never lie, or I'll do everything in my power to not lie. And when it comes to the point of this is, there's no reason for me to lie. I'm just going to I'm opening up about who I am. And if that catches somebody's attention and they like how I speak and they like hearing me talk, that's awesome. But this is starting out for me. But I've been thinking about this for a while, and I heard somebody say recently that it's important to have somebody that you look like to represent, that feel like a representative for you in different facets of life. Like, it's nice to have, like, from what I understand, myself as a white man in America has been very, very heavily represented. It's easy. You can literally turn on any channel and turn on any program, and almost all of them, like 99% of them, they got at least one of somebody who looks like me in it. Not necessarily with the beard and all that, but, a white guy. And what I've heard recently was that it's a thing but, hearing it helps too. But somebody said it's so awesome to have have a person who looks like you in that role. So, like, for me, the idea of, like, the Black Panther, one of my favorite movies, just in general, the general vibe of that movie is so good. But it's also a primarily black cast. But almost every person in the movie, except for maybe 2 or 3 significant characters, are black. There's side characters because we're in different countries and parts of the movie. But yeah, the people whose name is on the marquee when they present the movie, the people who says the main actors and actresses are all black, and it's amazing. And then there's a movie, I think it's called The Harder We Fall, or Harder They Fall, but it's got Idris Elba and a few I can't remember all the people, but I know it's got Idris Elba in it. And it's a Western movie, and it is a nearly all black cast except for a lot of the bad guys are white, which in that time makes sense. Wild West, Civil War era, makes sense. A lot of people who look like me were the bad guys, are the bad guys, and so I feel like is important. Having people who look like you in various roles is important. Having Congress people, having the president, having major stars and athletes and people of all walks of life, people who make things and promote the world, like make the world better by existing. Those people, you should have people who represent you in all walks of life, because that's a more true to form reality. Everybody can do everything with the right time and effort. Like, if in right opportunity, obviously, because some people have the mental ability and have the willpower to do a thing, but are treated poorly because something that's dumb. Like, what the hell? Like, not dumb in the sense that, yeah, it matters in the sense that if you care about that and it's culturally significant, that's awesome. But in the day-to-day, it shouldn't matter. And so, while I find it incredibly important to have people who look like you, represent you, that's easy. I've already got that. I don't need to be that. There are hundreds of examples of that. Millions of examples of that from me, from people who look like me, and people who speak like me, people who speak English. It's who, like, people, Americans get so wildly and widely overrepresented when we're one country in a massive world. And people say it's a small world, but it's really not. Like, what I can see in front of me, let me just do a thing real quick. This is a massive world, and this is a massive country. It is also a beautiful place, but at the same time, it's one of them, one country, and English is just one of the languages, and for a lot of people I know in this country, there are a lot of Christians. Christianity is one of the belief systems, one of the spiritual religious paths. There are so many other paths, and I respect and find all of them beautiful. As long as nobody's being treated with cruelty or being affected without their consent, then go for it, right? Like, I think it's beautiful to practice your beliefs and pray and have your rituals and or have your traditions for whatever part of you you're representing at the moment. But again, one country, one language, one major religion. That's it. Like, and so you'll never hear me disrespect a person based on those things. Things that I find beautiful and interesting and intriguing to learn about. I definitely have never. I was raised by a single mom who was more agnostic or a spiritual believer kind of person rather than a more traditional religious person. And then eventually my father was part of my life. He was off and on in my life when I was younger, but he came into my life, and so a period of time I was very closely attached and considered myself a Christian. So I was very attached to the Christian church, specifically like a southern, Pentecostal type of non-denominational kind of vibe, where it's like the Holy Spirit was a big part of it. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, that kind of thing. We were I've been to all kinds of Christian churches. I've been all across this country for years, and I went to mega churches. I went to small little, almost like mom and pop shops that are churches, all that kind of thing. And when I left for the Air Force, I still maintained my faith for a while, but I went through a pretty heavy spiritual deconstruction when I started to unpack that stuff, some of that stuff. And I'll still never disrespect that. My father is a very devout Christian, and I love that about him. I embrace that about him. He and I had one of our first true healing conversations like a week or two ago, probably a week ago, and it was heavily about his faith, and I was able to reference the fact that I no longer follow that faith to the same way he does, but connect it back to my own. Like, we can have discussions and conversations regarding politics and religion and spirituality and all this stuff, and it not be an argument. Like, it doesn't have to be contentious. But yeah, I kind of got off on tangents and kind of meandered a bit, but the point of the matter is that I am going to just start telling my story and my family stories, and eventually if people want to join in or want to contribute to this or want to help me build this, then I'll help tell their stories, or maybe they can get on to tell their stories, whatever, however that works out. I'm an autistic veteran, but I'm also a big old nerd. I love everything nerd related. I call myself an equal opportunity nerd, so I will dabble in more gadgety stuff. I'll tinker with soldering and working with my hands, but I'll also I like to write, and I like to make stories and geek out about comic books and stuff. So, yeah, I will reference and dabble in spirituality and politics and religion and culture and stuff like that, just from my perspective. But hopefully you can see that my perspective is pretty balanced. It's a pretty level-headed, grounded approach. And it comes from love. I genuinely have learned that I love everything, like aspects of everything. Some things are purely evil and can't love those things, but the majority of this reality I love, and I want to share that with the world and hopefully help those who struggle to love this reality to find something new to love. Like, I'm a weird guy. I can talk forever. I've literally only been on the road for a little bit, but I've already been talking for almost 40 minutes. So I'm going to cut this short in a few minutes. But yeah, I know I've only got like 4 people listening right now, and one of them's my mom, and one's my best friend. So it's like, not even that. Most people aren't listening to this. But eventually, if even 10 or more, maybe 100 start to listen to this, I'll expand this. I plan on digging into like TikTok, and I plan on doing shorts. I plan on maybe having a D&D related show thing, or like a story time thing. It's all pretty up in the air right now, and pretty much just going by my gut, flying by the seat of my pants, as it were. And that's the goal. I'm heading towards DC right now. I was originally going to leave a couple days ago, but finances and getting packed up took longer than I wanted. I've got my uniform. I've got different versions of my uniform. So I'm going to be showing up to this protest. If anybody watches this, like Cliff Cash or anybody who's helping organize this, sorry for being a little bit late. But I'll be there for as long as you'll have me. And I'll probably move from there, maybe to another protest, maybe to another function, maybe travel the country and just tell stories. Do like a travel vlog type of thing. And really do it my way. Like, I'll probably start a Patreon just so I can help keep this thing on the road. Literally, this thing. Pretty much most of what I own in life is in this car. So I drive safely. I just had my car got it through the road trip inspection, as it were, and we're just gonna drive and see this country. Hopefully make friends along the way. So let me know if anybody here who shares this or finds this and wants to bring this to their friends and family. Awesome. I really appreciate it. But really, at the moment, this is for me. I can talk forever, and so this is a way for me to do that as an outlet and to share my story. And if all this is just like a virtual diary for myself, that's rough roads. But yeah, if this just becomes like just a way for me to vent or to get these thoughts out of me, then that's what it's going to be. But hopefully, eventually, I can help people with this. And if you want to be part of this, or at least watch as I go through this and learn as I go, I'm lucky to have you. I feel like this is a major thing in my life. I just basically deconstructed my whole life, impacted my car, and I have this thing in my car that I have on my dash. I'll show you before I end this video, but it says, where is it? There we go. Every life is a fairy tale written by God's fingers. So lately, I don't necessarily always say the word God when I say things. When I do my nightly, like, end of day kind of routine, I sometimes say universe, I sometimes say source, I sometimes say God. And if that is a thing that's going to throw you off, then oh no, sorry, it's just who I am. I'm going to call this quits. I'll probably get on here again later after I'm done uploading this video. Who knows how long it's going to take with this signal. Have a great day. I'm Austin. I am the Blue Guy. And thank you for listening.